For the Republican response, the party of no, as we just said, chose Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. He took time out of celebrating Mardi Gras to look back to the government response to Hurricane Katrina for inspiration about how the federal government should work in the future. No, I'm not kidding. And now the response to the breathtaking Republican response to President Obama. The Republican response that left me literally slack-jawed and babbling like a Benadrylled infant when I was supposed to respond live on television to Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal, who is apparently now but officially elevated to be the new face of the Republican Party. And the new face of the Republican Party looks and sounds conspicuously like the two most recent new faces of the Republican Party, Sarah Palin and Michael Steele. All three are young and charismatic and personally interesting, and at least publicly, they are devoid of substantive ideas for governing the country that stand up to even remotely rigorous, rational, policy-based assessment. Just my opinion. In terms of pulling us out of our economic calamity, specifically, Bobby Jindal, whose headfirst dive into the news this week came alongside the headline, "Governor Rejects Additional Unemployment Benefits for His Residents." He was the official Republican responder tonight to President Obama. And his response included, surprise, the totally breakthrough argument that spending is not the answer. Tax cuts are the answer.
The way to lead is not to raise taxes, not to just put more money and power in the hands of Washington politicians. The way to lead is by empowering you, the American people. That's why Republicans put forward plans to create jobs by lowering income tax rates for working families, cutting taxes for small businesses.
What you got right there is what happens when you put a premium on things that sound good rather than policies that, work. In the jaw-dropping comment of the night, Governor Jindal went on to invoke government failure during Hurricane Katrina as a model for how to understand how we should move forward as a country.
Today in Washington, some are promising that government will rescue us from the economic storms raging all around us. Those of us who lived through Hurricane Katrina, we have our doubts.
I thought I could come up with words again, hearing it the second time around. Honestly, I can't. The idea being that since government failed during Hurricane Katrina, we should understand not that government should not be allowed to fail again, but that government is inherently fail, that government never works, that government can't work, and therefore we should stop seeking a functioning government. Stunning.
We need to bring transparency to Washington, D.C., so we can rid our capital of corruption and ensure that we never see the passage of another trillion-dollar spending bill that Congress hasn't even read and the American people haven't even seen.
That stimulus bill passed because of corruption. There is this cool new website called recovery.gov, also financialstability.gov. There is kind of a new transparency thing happening in Washington. Welcome aboard, Governor! Bobby Jindal is the latest future of the Republican Party. Are you wondering why they chose him? Well, consider the faces they have elevated since John McCain was chosen as the party's 2008 standard bearer. Their first choice was Sarah Palin as John McCain's number 2. John McCain reportedly was not that interested in picking her. Party influences suggested that he ought to. He ended up with her, and well, we know how that worked out. Since then, the party has chosen Michael Steele to chair the Republican National Committee. And tonight, they chose Bobby Jindal to respond to the not State of the Union. Beyond being youngish and interesting-ish and charismatic-ish, all three of these Republican leaders are also sort of past the far end of the bell curve when it comes to their beliefs on social issues. Sarah Palin, as you know, pushed for teaching creationism and intelligent design in public schools. This week, Michael Steele was asked if the GOP would consider civil unions for gay couples. His response, quote, "No, no, no. What would we do that for? What? Are you crazy? No." This from the new chair of the Republican Party, who had suggested reaching out to Republican voters who might disagree with Republican orthodoxy on gay rights issues. And then there's Governor Jindal. On the issue of abortion, say, while some conservatives are willing to make exceptions in cases of rape and incest, Bobby Jindal is a purist, saying, quote, "I am 100% anti-abortion with no exceptions." In other words, the new leadership of the Republican Party is off the right-hand end of the bell curve of American public opinion. And then there is the similarity among these new faces of republicanism on policy or the lack thereof. There is an argument to be made that the new leadership of the Republican Party represents, take your pick, the nonsense wing of the party, the know-nothing wing of the party. In other words, members of the party that favor bumper stickers over effective plans. Drill, baby, drill, say. Sarah Palin once trying to explain the Wall Street bailout by going into a disjointed dissertation on health care reform. In opposing the stimulus, Michael Steele trying to argue that government has never created a job. Really? Bobby Jindal, he have an Ivy League education and a Rhodes Scholarship and high-level posts in state and federal government with experience in healthcare reform, left me speechless in the immediate wake of his mindless policy-free response to the president's address and is turning down extension of unemployment benefits in his home state, saying that they are wasteful, even though they are the most economically stimulative thing we can measure in terms of federal policy. So what did we learn from the Republican response tonight? That membership among the new faces of the GOP has very narrow membership requirements indeed, and they are of limited appeal, limited use, with the country circling the drain. Joining us now is national correspondent for Air America Radio and contributor to the Daily Beast, Anna Marie Cox. Anna, it is always great to talk to you. You are often more rational on these issues than I am. Am I right in this case? Do you feel less stressed out about this than I do?
I don't know if I feel less stressed out, but I do have a word that I go to when I'm inarticulate, which is "gah," and I gift that to you.
Gah.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's the GAH. You feel free to use it.
I was speechless twice. In hearing the Katrina response, because the implication of it is not that the lesson to have learned from Katrina is that we ought to make the government work better because we need the government for some stuff, but that we don't need the government because the government can't do anything. Yeah, we ought to just become.
You better not trust that government.
Yeah, ever.
Yeah, it was a very strange and counterintuitive thing to do. I also particularly like the section where he said, the GOP has lost your trust and we deserve to lose your trust. But trust us.
Because we will get it right next time.
We have a vast array of policies and things to trust us about that we have not told you about yet, apparently. It sort of goes against the very idea of trust. Also, he invoked the fictitious high-speed rail line from Disneyland to Las Vegas. I love that they picked Disneyland, especially because the thing apparently only exists in the Disneyland of the mind.
Right, exactly. It's not a monorail. You know that's a different idea, right?
Goes to Springfield, I believe. Homer is a conductor.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And the nuclear power plant. Yeah. Now, what do you make of this idea, though, that there is a similarity to be gleaned between Sarah Palin, Michael Steele, and Bobby Jindal? Those are the three Republicans, with the possible exception of Eric Cantor, sort of moved up on his own steam.
Right.
Those are the three Republicans who have really sort of been picked by the party since they chose John McCain. Do you see them of being of a type, of a sort?
I do, and I think that you used the word interesting-ish, which I will now borrow from you. You can have I'll have interesting-ish, which I think describes them all perfectly. They all do have things about them that don't perfectly fit the party stereotype, let's put it that way. And whether it's just the color of their skin or their genitals. I
don't want to talk about the color of genitals.
I meant what type they possess.
Yeah.
But policy-wise, they don't have a lot that's different from the conservative core of the party. There is a lot about them that is simply stage dressing. And it is curious to me how tone deaf they are on people wanting, not realizing that people now seem to be hungry for substantive answers to policy. The one thing about that speech that was really striking, it didn't go into detail in a wonkish way like Clinton used to, but it was very specific and asked for very specific things from the American people.
President Obama's speech.
Yes, President Obama's speech asked for very specific things from the American people. Jindal's response didn't, and I also don't think that Steele or Palin have yet to come up with a kind of call that would attract people to want to be part of their movement. Michael Steele's most specific thing he said to date was that he would welcome one-armed midgets into the party.
Yes.
Which I believe he can have them. I mean, not to be, I am not biased on that at all.
You are also trying to reach out in that direction.
I also, with one hand, yes.
National correspondent for Air America Radio, contributor to the Daily Beast, Anna Marie Cox. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Sorry.